Checklist today, we've got tires. The only thing that I have to do is change the front tire, but I am going to rip the sprocket off the back tire, install the new one. Then I've got the radiators. We need to straighten those out a little bit and clean them up as well. We've got linkage bearings. Got to replace this one right here, and then that little guy right there. So you gotta press those out, and I think that should all be pretty solid for the day, so let's get to it. One thing you're gonna need today, 100%, is decent vise. Something else that you may need is this little guy right here, tusk bearing remover. That's gonna help us with the bearing here, since we can't just push it all the way through with the vise, since it's recessed there. So any of these products that I use, I'll link them down below. They're all affiliate links, so if you are interested in anything you see, you can find it down there. So if you saw in a previous video, this bearing right here just fell apart, completely rusted out. Our plan here is to push the bearing through, so we need a socket. In this case, I've got an 18mm socket. Matches up nicely with the bearing and should be able to push all the way through. Then we're going to need another socket that just goes around the outside and essentially holds the outer rim here, and the bearing will push into here. So what really helps is heat. It will help push these bearings through super easy. I'm going to go ahead and give it a shot, see if I can just push it through, but if not, we'll go from there. So just make sure you got everything lined up here. Not going to damage any parts. We can go ahead and start cranking down. I think I can already tell that I'm going to need a little bit of heat. It's pressing through. It's taking a little bit of elbow grease. I think I'm going to go ahead and give this guy a little torch treatment since it's so cold out here. What are the odds that it fell on a little piece of glass here? We've got our bearing out. Look at that thing. It's crusted in there pretty good. So now the blind bearing here on this linkage. With my tool, I've got the tusk bearing remover. It's decent price. I think it was like $80, but find the right size tool you can insert in there, and this size is just a little bit tricky because it's kind of right in between the 20 and I think the 18, but still able to get it in there. Expand it out there so it's tight. And then our setup here is probably going to be something like, you don't want to squeeze too hard on that linkage there. And then on the other end here, screw the hammer in place. So I'll show you there, it's getting worked out a little bit. I applied some heat around the area there, and I think the best option is just to hold on to this guy, and should be popping out here soon. There we go. There, that's out. So our bearings are all pulled out of there and ready to be cleaned up. I think while I'm out here, I'm going to go ahead and try and straighten out these radiators before we run in and clean those up as well. They're not terrible, but they could use some work. I'm just going to be using this vise here, and hopefully we end up with some good results. First off, we need these radiators straight. Both these got a little bit of a corkscrew. When clamping these in here, do it super lightly. They're way too easy to damage. Just tight enough to hold it. All you're gonna do here is just try and manhandle it. And there, that straightened it out a little bit there. Might go a little bit more. So there's my finished product. You know, it's still a little banged up here and there, but it looks and it'll work a little bit better. Our other one has quite the corkscrew in it, so we're gonna need to twist that out before we can get to work on it here. It is in better overall condition than the other one, but do need to manhandle this one a little bit. I think that's probably the best we're gonna get. It looks pretty good, at least on that side. Not so much that side. A little bit dirty though. So I think we're set to go into the house, clean all those up, get them all nice and shiny. Then we'll probably run out here to put the bearings back in. Port's all cleaned up nice, and we got our brand new bearings to press in. All right, we're ready to press some bearings in here. I'm gonna start with one on my triangle here. So this one, on the bearing, both sides are rounded. There's, you know, not one side in particular that needs to go where. And with this one, it's just gonna be perfectly centered right in there. Normally, if you'd have a micrometer, you'd be able to measure that out perfectly. Unfortunately today, we're just gonna have to eyeball it. A little bit of grease on there, and then just on the outside of the bearing here. So we got the bearing tied up against the vise there, and we're just gonna start slow. We just wanna make sure that this goes in straight. So just continue to press that in until we are flush. What fits perfectly here is a 17 mil, what we used before. And like I said, we're gonna try and center this. as best we can. We've got it pressed in there a little ways. Back it off here and whoops, double check our depth here. So see, a little bit more gap on the one side there. Alright, after a little bit of messing around, my eyeball is pretty good. That is pretty much equal there. Fits perfectly. Covers on, and cover on the other side. So, our triangle piece all cleaned up, and that thing is ready to go back on the bike. Next, we've got our linkage arm here, and bearings for there. So, this bearing, specific way to put it in. One side here is flat, and it does have markings on it. That's the side that's going to be facing out, so it's going to go in just like this. The other side is slightly rounded and a little less surface area, so be conscious of that when you're putting it in. One thing, grease this little guy up, a little grease on the bearing, and same thing for this one. Just going to be pressing the bearing in until it's flush, and just make sure that it's going in nice and straight. As far as I can go there. Grab an equal size socket. And with this one, since this is recessed here, basically you're just pushing the bearing all the way into the lip that's back there. So once you can't push it in anymore, you're pretty much set. We've got that pressed in all the way. All you got to do, really, stick your finger back in there, make sure there's not a gap, and then this little recessed edge here, as long as you're essentially flush up against that, you should be good. This is the pin that goes through on these bearings here. You can tell that, I mean, this is after I've cleaned this thing up really well. You can tell which side had the really bad bearing, this one over here, because it's just completely marred up, and this is our other nice and shiny one. So I've got to wait on a bearing for the other side because I didn't get sent both of them, so that kind of sucks. When the time comes, I'll probably just do it off camera. So we got two of those things done. Radiators all cleaned up and fixed, and all of our bearings, well, aside from one, all replaced and lubed up. So last thing I'm gonna do, probably just pop this sprocket off the back. Whew. Got that one out. Somebody already rounded it out pretty good, so probably have to go find some new bolts here for the sprocket. That's pretty worn down. Well, since the heads for some of those bolts were all rounded out, gonna have to wait to buy a freaking little bolt set to put the sprocket on. I think I'll probably just end it right here, clean the wheel up in my off time. As far as I can tell, the wheel bearings, when I checked them on the bike, they're pretty solid. And with the rear tire, I'm just gonna be leaving that on the rim and cleaning the whole tire up and putting her back on the bike. With the front tire, do gotta change that out since a couple of the knobbies are torn off and old and cracked. So a mildly productive day, and like usual, down in the description is all the affiliate links for any of the tools or products, aftermarket parts, anything that I use that I really like. So if you want, you can click through there, purchase some. Otherwise, if you want to. Patreon link down there as well. So other than that, that's all I got for you. If you actually like any of these videos, let me know. At the moment, you know, got a small crowd, but just doing this for fun and basically for information for people out there who want to do it. So whether it be a like or a comment or a Patreon donation, everything and anything helps towards this channel grow. So from there, I'll see you next time. Peace.